like to call to order the City of Lake Forest Parks and Recreation Board meeting for September 13th, 2011, 6:30 p.m. at City Hall. Thank you all for coming. A couple announcements first. Wendy McKiernan, who is in our audience today, this is her last board meeting tonight. Not a big deal. We just wanted to say thank you. On September 30th, she's retiring after 32 years with the City of Lake Forest and the Recreation Department. And I want to thank you for everything you've done. All my children have known you forever, so we are truly, truly going to miss you, and it just won't be the same without you. So thank you so much for everything you've done. And secondly, I'd like to welcome Jeff Waite. He is our new Superintendent of Special Facilities. He just started with us, and he's in the audience as well. So welcome to your first board meeting. So we have a retirement and a new person. So thank you all for coming. We are going to rearrange the order of the agenda a little bit. We're waiting for one more board member to come, which we need 4 board members to have a quorum to vote on anything. So bear with us. We're going to start off with a spotlight on the Wildlife Discovery Center and Rob Carmichael.
All right. Well, members of the board, thank you so much for letting me come out. It's been not too long since I've been here, but I'd like to get you up to date with what's happening at the Wildlife Discovery Center at Elliwa Farm. It's, for those in the audience and for those who've been there, you know how beautiful a resource it is, and it's a place where people just come to really enjoy life and slow the pace down a little bit. We got a lot going on. We've had a busy summer, and we're going into even a busier fall. September and October are becoming our busiest months of the year because of all of our schools coming out for field trips and our after-school classes and preschool and birthday parties and all kinds of things. So I'd like to give you a few updates, and that's Sid. I'll tell you what, these are all animals that live at the Wildlife Discovery Center. So that's Sid. He's very popular. As far as what we do lots. I tell you, remember when I first started the Wildlife Discovery Center almost 15 years ago in a little tiny room at the rec center, the old fitness room, and to think of where we've started and where we've come today and where we're still heading in the future. It's really kind of neat to see how big we've gotten and how expansive we've gotten with our mission. You can see on the screen we do so many things between just the traditional programs like classes and the camps, and we also have a lot of special events now that we'll talk about in just a second. Birthday parties have become very popular, especially at the Elliwa Farm. We're also reaching out to starting to do more adult program. That's an area that we hope to increase this coming year and to get more involved with adult programming. So we've got a lot going on, even in the field of research and conservation. We've got a graduate student from Loyola University who's been studying a population of garter snakes around the farm, which I'm sure everyone's just thrilled about. But they are an important animal in our ecosystem. So we've really kind of branched out and expanded our mission a little bit. As far as our special events, we've had 4 really popular ones this past year. Kevin Hansen is a bobcat expert. He came and talked. He wrote a book called Bobcat Master of Survival, and gave a great presentation, and that helped sort of unveil our newest member of the Wildlife Discovery Center, which was Boris the bobcat. He's become probably one of our most popular animals and has quite a growing fan club by each week. Brady Barr is a fairly well-known animal TV guy with National Geographic. He has this TV show called Dangerous Encounters. He's also a good friend of mine, and he came out this past year and gave a great talk to all the families about all his crazy adventures in the field and in Africa, and that was also a hugely popular event. And of course, Reptile Rampage, second Sunday of every March, by far our most popular event and one of our community's, I think, most unique events, where we attract probably several thousand people and over 100 exhibitors and a whole bunch of neat animals for kids to touch and hold, and it's better than a day at the zoo anytime. And then our newest our program that we have coming up right around the corner on Saturday, October 15th, Croctoberfest. We're going to be celebrating the world of crocodiles. Not only do we have some of our own resident crocodilians on hand, but we've got the world famous Bubba, the American alligator. You have to see it to believe it, but Bubba is a one-of-a-kind animal, and if you want to get cozy to a 9-10 foot alligator, come out to Croctoberfest. It's free of charge. We do recommend a donation at the door, and it's going to be just a really neat family event for all ages, whether you're a little infant which we won't be touching, Bubba. But if you're an infant all the way up to seniors, come on out. It's a great time. So we have some flyers in the back room. If you want to take one, you can get some more information about that. We've also been working hard at developing a lot of partnerships, not only local partnerships, but state, federal, and even international partnerships. Most recently, we became official members of Chicago Wilderness, which was a really big deal for us because we're a fairly small nature center, and now we're among 200 of the finest environmental facilities in the Chicago metropolitan region. We were unanimously voted in by the board of directors this past summer, and that's going to help us to continue to network and partner and find new partners and also new funding sources as well. We're also working now closely, much more closely with Lake Forest Open Lands and the Center for Conservation Leadership. We're going to be working with several of their youth this fall and going into next spring and teaching them how we do field research and getting these kids that are typically between 8th grade and sophomores in high school, give them a chance to get real life experience and getting them a chance to really get excited about learning about nature. And we're also doing some programs at the Chicago Botanic Garden. We're actually going to be doing 8 animal shows at their annual Hallowfest, which is one of the most popular events they have. We're also working closely with Chicago Park District. We're also reaching out to other conservation groups like the IUCN, which is the International Union of Center of Network Conservation. Sorry. And there's a crocodile specialist group that we're working closely with to help bring more awareness to the plight of crocodilians all over the world. And then, of course, some of our local wildlife, like the Blandings Turtle Project, which is an endangered species of turtle. I'm working closely with a team of scientists and trying to figure out a way to save one of our rarest turtles of Lake County. As far as revenue sources, we're starting to expand that area. Our traditional user fees make up about 70% of our operating budget, and also that includes our Adopt program where people can sponsor an animal, which is becoming more popular. People can come out and sponsor one of the animals that are on exhibit, and it gives them a chance to really kind of feel that connection with the animals that live at the Wildlife Discovery Center. We also get support from various foundations and also private donors, and also some people are now starting to, instead of having birthday presents, in lieu of presents, they're doing donations, which is really a great idea. It teaches kids about stewardship and how to give back to the community. And also in-kind donations. The Max Shevitz Foundation, for example, has funded a new butterfly garden behind our bird of prey enclosures, and it's becoming a really beautiful piece of land that's now being restored. Our private donations probably accounts for about 25% of our revenue. That includes like the Nagani Foundation and some other wonderful supporters of what we do. And the corporate sector is about, it's less than 5%, and that's an area that we really want to focus on this coming year, is trying to reach out more to our local corporations. And that was Boris Bobcat, by the way, in that picture. This is our past summer. Our attendance figures are starting to rise now. We're getting more, as the word's getting out, more people are coming out. June and July and August were well attended with well over 1,000 people coming out during our normal open hours to the public. We're currently open Tuesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. and then Sundays from noon to 4 p.m. It's free of charge, so we reach out to everyone. Come on out. It's a really beautiful place. And also the open air market, which is run through the garden and the kitchen there. Gail Gann, who's now our new celebrity chef, is cooking up a storm, and she's got all kinds of baked goods for sale. And it's really a great place to come out and spend the whole day if you want. That's our, in the right corner, that's our leaf-tailed gecko from Madagascar. That's one of our favorites too. And this picture shows Bruno. He's an alligator snapping turtle. And you can see the faces of the kids. I think this is why I do what I do, because when you see the excitable looks, you know, when they're seeing this incredible animal for the first time, it's really kind of a surreal experience when you see that. And we captured it on film there. And a friend of mine, Carl Franklin, he's a well-known herpetologist at the University of Texas, heard about this incredible alligator snapping turtle, and he flew all the way up here just to get a chance to get some video clips of him and Bruno. So we'll show that right now real quick. It's about a minute long. Hopefully it works. If not, no biggie. Carl's a very interesting guy, very, very animated, and really was extremely excited to get the opportunity to see perhaps the world's largest alligator snapping turtle in captivity. Bruno is a rescued animal. He was illegally poached from the wild probably from Louisiana, kept in horrible conditions for most of his life, and it was confiscated, taken away from this person because he was doing some illegal activities, and it went to the Racine Zoo. Racine Zoo was having no luck rehabilitating this poor animal, and they called us up. They knew we had a really good track record working with rare species of reptiles like Bruno here. Big boy, about 225 pounds, and as far as we know, could be over 150 years old, so older than Lake Forest. Go figure. So he's really an incredible animal, and he's part of our field trip program. People can come see him. Carl's being very careful. He doesn't want to lose any digits. And like you said, this made his trip all worthwhile coming up from Texas just to get a chance to see this amazing animal.
Wow.
And it's just a little wrap up. Hopefully everyone's gonna get a chance to come out and visit. It's still a beautiful time of year now. The fall's coming, the change of seasons. Oh my gosh. The Open Oak Savanna, the Middle Fork, is just one of the most magical places in Lake Forest. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful place. Now, before I end it though, it wouldn't be right of me to not bring something from our Wildlife Center. So I'm gonna introduce to you our very newest animal. It's Mac, the barred owl. As you can see in the picture, he is blind in one eye. He unfortunately was flying over a highway and got hit by a truck. He's lucky to be alive. He did sustain a major trauma to one of his eyes that had to be removed. He also sustained some brain damage, but he's healed up. He obviously can't go back out to the wild, but he's really just an amazing animal. I'm gonna bring him out, and we'll hope that we don't have one of those really weird, memorable experiences with animals here. We've only had a couple in my 15 years, but it won't be
Your
today.
desk. We can all go over here. At least we have an audience. It's nice to have an audience for this. Wow, much bigger.
So this is Mac. Look that way. Look that way.
Hey, Rob.
Look any way you want, because you're an owl. You can turn your head all the way.
Rob, can you turn him just a little bit so he's in the light for
Sure.
everybody to see him?
Yeah, it's really beautiful. These are native to Illinois and all, the northeastern parts of the United States, also southern Illinois, and really a beautiful bird. They're the one that has this classic, I'll make a really bad sound. It goes, woo, 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 woo. And when you hear that, you got a barred owl. In fact, you can talk to barred owls all night long by making those calls, which every night he and I have a couple of conversations. So,
He dropped.
he did. He's a bird. And I clean that up. Big part of my job, this is what we do. We do a lot of do, so.
Now, Rob, will we keep him indefinitely, or? we
Yeah,
keep him
he'll
on
be a
hold?
permanent resident of the Wildlife Discovery Center, and he's gonna be a big part of our raptor education program. He's only been here for a few weeks, so he's just actually you're the first crowd that's seen him.
Oh,
So I think he passed the test. He did really, really well. He's a little nervous coming in, but he's doing really well.
How many owls do we have? Or is he?
We have a barred owl. We also have a great horned owl, a screech owl. So we have 3 owls, and we also have 2 other birds of prey: a red-tailed hawk and a Harris's hawk.
So how old do you think he is?
Mac is probably about 2 or 3 years old, as far as
Okay.
we know. It's hard to tell because he's already an adult size, but he has kind of young behaviors, so we're guessing 2 or 3 years old.
And their lifespan?
In the wild, 5 to 10 years, maybe 15 if they're lucky. In captivity, they can live 20 years. They're doing pretty well.
Okay.
So we hope to have them certainly until I retire.
Great.
Rob, how many animals do you have at the Wildlife Discovery Center?
Ooh, good question. I would say we have approximately 125 animals. Birds of prey, reptiles, amphibians, some fish, and Boris the bobcat, our one and only mammal.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
Can I ask you a question? But you mentioned adult programs. Are they going to be a fee or free or?
Both probably. Some of the things we want to do are like shoreline birding, kayaking trips, day trips, utilizing some of our resources that we have and taking advantage of it. Maybe doing some. We're also going to do some beginning bird watching and things like that, just to try and get some more people involved and teaching them how to enjoy nature. So that way, when you're going out on a hike, it's not just hiking, but now you get a chance to have some interpretive skills behind you too.
That's great.
Yeah.
Rob, you mentioned corporate partnerships as a growth area. What kinds of things are you thinking about? What are you looking for?
Well, I mean, right now, for example, we try and get corporate sponsors for our special events. There's one company, BTG International, they're out of the UK. They sponsor our Reptile Rampage. They kick in about $3,500. So what the other idea we have is possibly getting corporate sponsors to sponsor exhibits. So this exhibit is sponsored by whoever. And we think we can give a lot of, the corporations can benefit a lot because once again, they're promoting youth programs, they're promoting good things in our community. And I think it's, with the right amount of marketing, I think we can make this thing go.
Are any of the organizations that we've been working with, can they help you with getting those corporate sponsors, or do they have a track record or a plan how to go out about doing that?
The big part of what I'm doing, at least for the last couple of years, is a lot of it's just simple networking. As we're networking with all these other agencies, these agencies also have their own corporate sponsors, and by connecting with them and networking with them, we're kind of working shoulder to shoulder. And I think we're going to be more appealing to those same sponsors. And as we work together, we just did a big program with Open Land Chicago for their big grand opening of the Lakeshore site at Fort Sheridan, which is absolutely beautiful. And we're going to be doing some collaborative programs in the coming year, 2 or 3 years. So I think it's gonna get there. It just takes a little bit of networking, and I think we're going to make some big strides over the next couple of years.
Great. Any other questions?
Any questions?
Comments?
Good work.
Well, thank you.
Yeah,
Appreciate
thanks.
it.
Thank you so much. Thanks for showing us Mac.
Oh, anytime. I'll come back and get it.
Okay. Let's be careful when we go up there. Okay, we will go back to our agenda, starting back to the approval of minutes. We switched to Wildlife Discovery Center because there was no action involved with that while we were waiting for our fourth board member to arrive. So thank you for coming. So can I have approval of a motion to approve the August 16th, 2011 Park Board minutes?
So moved.
A second? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Great. We are going to, our next item is the Deer Path Golf Course Golf Committee recommendation. It's going to be presented by Kirk Volkman, and we will have public comment immediately after his presentation, and we won't wait until the end of the meeting, as well as under the director's report. Item A is comments on Deer Path Golf Course August 30th forum. That's been canceled. It's all wrapped up into the same presentation. So you don't need to wait for that either if you don't choose not to. So with no further ado, I will turn it over to Kirk Vogelman.
Thanks, Robin, and thanks everybody for coming out tonight. As you know, we formed a golf committee earlier in the summer, primarily to explore different management options to address the deteriorating financial condition at Deer Path. And the committee consisted of Michelle Green and myself from the Park Board, Alderman Kathy Waldeck and Tom Morsch, Bob Kiley, Mary Van Arsdale, and Chris Marslick was on the committee as well. And our charter was to, as I said, explore options, and it truly was an exploration of management options. And if you attended the meeting 2 weeks ago, you're familiar with kind of the range of options we considered, from continuing to run it ourselves to full privatization to leasing options. There are all kinds of things we considered. One of the key steps in the process that we followed was the issuance of a request for qualifications, which went out in the July timeframe. And we sent it to well over 300 companies nationally. And from that long list, we ended up getting back only about 7 responses. And from the 7, we chose 4 companies that we felt were best qualified and best experienced and most familiar with our local market to have a follow-up conversation. And that we did. Also in the July timeframe, we sat down and met with these 4 companies and picked their brain a bit on what they could do for Deer Path, what they could do for Lake Forest, and helped us better understand what these options truly could bring for us. And I'll say personally, I learned a lot. I am a golfer. I'm a bad golfer, but I've never managed a course in my life. And I really have a deeper appreciation now for the complexities involved in running a course well and doing it profitably. So we talked to those 4 companies, which answered questions for us, but raised additional questions, and that led to a second, perhaps more important step, and that was held 2 weeks ago at Gorton when we held a public meeting and shared with the attendees what we learned from the meetings with those companies. We shared our thinking on the options and got a lot of feedback. There were about 160 people in attendance, and we heard lots of ideas, lots of concerns, lots of things to incorporate into our thinking, and I will tell you, we did listen. And for those of you that were at the meeting, and for those of you that followed up with various emails and calls, we very much appreciate your input, because it has made a difference. So at this stage, there's a lot of things we know and a lot of things we don't know. One thing we know is that we have a very valuable asset in Deer Path Golf Course. We know we have a very passionate golfing community that cares very deeply about preserving all the good things at Deer Path. We know we have a golfing community that is very concerned about losing control of things like rates and tee times and other things that are important to the golf community. We also know Deer Path is facing some very serious financial challenges. You may have heard us talk before about this enterprise fund concept. Deer Path Golf Course has always been run as an enterprise fund, which basically means it's self-sufficient. It doesn't draw any tax dollars. All of the income and expenses go from and to Deer Path Golf Course. It stands alone. It has stood alone until last year. Last year was the first time ever we had to tap into other sources of funds to cover the debt service obligation that the course faces. And the forecast for the financial situation at Deer Path is pretty bleak. It will continue to get worse next year and the following year unless we do something differently. We also know that although there's some opportunities to continue to reduce costs at the course, we have a revenue problem. We need to grow rounds. We need to grow revenue, and that's the path that will get us out of the financial hole that we're in. We also know, after talking to these 4 organizations, that there are lots of best practices in the golf management business that we're not taking advantage of. Practices related to marketing, related to online reservations, other ways to drive rounds, drive revenue that we just, for various reasons, have not fully deployed at Deer Path. There's also things we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen at Fort Sheridan. We don't know if they're going to build a course, and if they do, we don't really know what impact that might have on rounds at Deer Path. We don't know what might happen with other courses in the surrounding area that are in worse financial shape than Deer Path is. Some may close, some may go to 9 holes. And again, the implications of that for Deer Path, we don't know at this stage. More importantly, we don't know what's going to happen with broader economic conditions which fundamentally impact the golf business. So considering the input from the community, the realities facing Deer Path and its financial situation, and the significant unknowns, the golf committee recommends the following. Trish, would you go to the first slide? We recommend that we do not privatize or lock into any other long-term management options. We feel that by filling Chris's position with a consultant from a professional golf management company who can bring not only his or her personal experience, but the expertise from the company that they represent, along with best practices, along with marketing tools, along with reservation systems, etc., we can fill a big void in the way we manage our financial and operating performance. Bob Kiley mentioned the metaphor of the Verizon commercial where the individual worker had the army behind him, and he said it's the network. And that's kind of the mental model we have in our minds, that we would like a professional in a consulting advisory capacity with the organization behind them, bringing all that expertise to help us at Deer Path. And of the 4 companies that we talked to in July, at least 3 of the 4 are willing to consider that option. Next, we'd like to form a golf advisory committee consisting of Deer Path members and other residents. We're thinking 5 to 7 members. And the purpose of this committee would be to advise on changes related to revenues, marketing, catering, merchandising, whatever it might be. One of the things we heard at our public meeting 2 weeks ago was that a lot of people feel they don't have a deep enough understanding of what's really going on at Deer Path and not a sufficient opportunity to provide input. We think by forming this advisory committee, it'll provide a broader understanding to the community and the golfers about what's going on and give them a chance to influence it. I will say, though, that the Park Board and the City Council will maintain authority for all decisions related to the course. This is an advisory body only. Next, we propose that we establish specific targets and goals related to course performance that will be very transparent, and everyone will have an opportunity to monitor and provide input on how we can improve on these metrics, such as total rounds, revenue per round, etc. We want to be very clear on what it's going to take to right the ship at Deer Path and improve its financial viability. And lastly, we'd like to secure commitment from the city that if in fact we do need to dip into alternative sources of funding over the next 1 or 2 years to get the course back on track, the city's willing to do that, much like they did this year. So with this recommendation, we feel it provides several advantages. First and foremost, the city maintains control over the course. And again, this was one of the loudest concerns that we heard at the meeting 2 weeks ago. Secondly, this approach will allow us to take advantage of the best practices and the capabilities that these professional golf management organizations have used at other courses. We could take advantage of them at Deer Path. And lastly, this approach would allow the members and residents to be much more involved in the operations and decision-making at the course. So tonight, I ask for the Park Board to consider and hopefully approve the recommendation of the Golf Committee. And then the next step would be, subject to further comments from the public, a similar presentation for City Council at the, Mary, help me,
September 19th.
September 19th meeting.
Thank you. Do we have comments or questions from the audience? If you could come to the podium and state your name and your address.
Dennis Meyer, 1134 Forest Hill Road. I had 2 questions. Number 1, do you expect that the consultant manager will be the primary teaching pro?
Until we interview candidates, I don't know. I think our vision was yes, but we don't know that for
Okay.
sure.
My other question was, do you know if the Lake Bluff course is in financial difficulty?
Yes.
And is that funded by real estate taxes in Lake Bluff, or is that an enterprise system?
Mary?
Lake Bluffs is part of the recreation department. It's no longer an enterprise fund, so it is, all of its losses are offset by their recreation fund.
And how long has it been that way, do you know?
I don't know that,
Okay.
but I know that they're a park district, which is, a separate type of governmental structure than the city, so.
We've been an enterprise fund since day one.
Yes.
Has there ever been a consideration to making it part of the tax roll? Like the parks? Just ask the question.
Any other questions, comments? Please come to the podium.
My name is Mary Lou Reed. I live at 1715 West Broadland Lane. First of all, I would like to thank the Golf Committee for listening to the people at our various public meetings. I really do appreciate it, and I feel that, some of the things you've come up with as part of the recommendation actually do reflect that you really did hear us, and that's really nice. I still have a few questions on your recommendations. I'd like to know, even though you're forming this golf committee, who actually would have the recommendation to hire the golf pro and look at his qualifications and what he brings to the table? Would it be the newly formed golf committee, or is it only like from the city or Parks and Recs or, the park board?
Kurt, you want me to answer that? Okay. It would be considered a personnel position, and as such, it would be hired by the city staff, which would involve myself and city manager Bob Kiley. The consultant aspect of it, that contract, though, in its entirety, which would include the recommendation for the person, would then also require city council approval. So it'll be a dual approach, and the selection and consideration for the replacement position would be done by city staff, but finally approved by city council.
With no input from the newly formed Golf Advisory Committee?
We can certainly talk about it. We haven't got into the depth of what the advisory committee's role is, but we typically have not involved resident groups in hiring decisions.
I think that's answer reflects a lot of the concern that we've expressed about the running of the golf course, and the fact that it's going to be thrown back to city staff and the city council without input from membership at the golf course that we've advocated for this whole time is still a concern. Because I think the golf course membership was not adequately represented on your golf committee. There were private members of golf courses who obviously don't understand those of us who make use of a public course, from a manager that he couldn't care less if it cost him $5,000 more a year because it's part of his contract. It's things like that we have a concern about that then can turn it into something that would be a privatization without representation, again, without members of our Deer Path golf community. And that truly is a concern. I believe that on this golf committee, we could have, as represented by people who stood up in the previous meeting, marketing ideas from marketing volunteers from big marketing companies that could help us out a lot. And that would be, a terrific asset to get that kind of volunteerism, because these are professional marketing people who volunteered their time. And in the August 30th meeting, there was a gentleman that stood up and said he would be more than happy to do that, and I think we should be more than happy to take him up on his offer. The idea that I understand about the monetary part, but that we have to establish goals for revenue rounds, but there's no other facility that in the city of Lake Forest that has to establish a revenue goal. You don't have to establish a revenue goal for soccer or baseball or even Forest Park Beach, which in fact can be a great revenue producer if you would just really charge the people who don't live here to use that beach at a decent rate. And so there's another opportunity to raise funds. One of the things that I think was brought up, even though it is an enterprise system and has always been an enterprise system, that I think it's time to talk about the Park and Recreation budget. At the August 30th meeting, 30% of our head of Parks and Recreation salary and benefits is charged to the enterprise system at the golf course, which gets nothing from the Park and Rec tax dollars. I think we were all made aware, unfortunately, that we don't get any Park and Rec for our tax dollars. There's a lot of people who use the golf course. Mainly, we are older citizens of the city of Lake Forest. And we pay our fair share of the Park and Rec budget, but we don't use jungle gyms, soccer fields, and baseball fields. And I think it's time maybe to take a look at what the Park and Rec Board budget pays for. It needs to pay for equal opportunity for everyone in the city, even if you are over 18 years old. Okay? I'd just like to put that in, and maybe that's something that we should consider going forward. That the tax dollars of the older citizens should be put toward the golf course. It's an adult recreational facility. And I, actually thank this opportunity to bring up the fact that, wow, $8 million budget and we get nothing. Gee, maybe there's an opportunity here. And I think that's about it for my concerns. But I would like to thank you again for listening to us, and I hope you're still listening to us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Sir?
My name is Brian Weston. I live at 1191 State Lane. I'd like a little clarification as to who is going to pay this management consultant who is coming in to run the golf course. Is it going to be a consulting company, or is it going to be the city, who then would be responsible for all his benefits because they'd be hiring? Could there be a clarification of that?
Our vision is that this person would remain an employee of the golf management company that they represent, and we pay a consulting fee. No benefits, we're paying the consulting fee.
I see. Now, I have an observation shared by some other people too, that having been a member of Deer Path, for many years, and I also want to thank you, for the way you listened to the previous meeting, that my observations of the management of the golf course, mainly Chris Marzalak, a person who was there 5 o'clock, 5:30 most mornings with Larry, handling all of the many tasks very, very well at a very reasonable salary base. My concern is that the work ethic of someone to come in to replace what we had in place doing an extremely good job is going to be very hard to replace, because hard work, dedication doesn't necessarily come with a consultant. I've worked with consultants most of my life, and I won't bore you with the sort of things I've had to deal with them. And the other one, I also want to say that if you're looking with IT, marketing, finance, if you were to take the majority of the members now at Deer Path, especially the senior ones, you have some very, very successful retired managers who, at no cost to the city, would be more than happy to come and help you put in the right IT systems, put in the right marketing, because there's so many things that could be done. And these could be done for nothing, because we live here, we love the city, and we don't expect to be paid for helping out a place that we really enjoy using. And I also would like to echo what the lady said very, very succinctly. Most of us are seniors. We don't have children in the system. We happily pay some very high taxes to this town because we enjoy living here. But the golf course is rather in many ways, the senior citizens' place to be. Most of us could afford to belong to private clubs, but we've chosen not to because we have so many friendships at that golf course. So utilize the talent that we are, and you might be very, very surprised just how you help out the town in your capacity. We could help out. And think very carefully, you know, when you've got to pay a consultant, you know, he's got good ideas, but the point is, you're going to set him goals, you know, can they be met? Will the weather be good? You know, can you genuinely increase rounds of golf when, unfortunately, the trend is to have less rounds? So my advice would be, take advantage of the talent that's in this town. And quite honestly, I think you could do most of these things literally for nothing. And I also think you're getting a good pro, you know, to come in at a relatively low cost. Think very carefully before you take a consultant. There's usually a lot of things you don't expect. Take the people who know the town and the golf course, and I think you can get a great deal of free talent. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sir, I think there's someone behind Wendy who would like to speak.
I didn't think you saw me.
His hand just beat you up.
I saw he was blocking your view. My name is Al Sprague. I live at 1281 Harlan Lane. I had a couple of questions that came out of the handout, and one of them is, we're going to hire a golf pro. Do I understand that to be correct?
Correct. That's correct.
And we are also going to pay a consultant to, in effect, manage the club and do marketing. Is that correct?
We're not absolutely clear at this stage if that's 2 people, 1 person.
Oh, okay. So it's
part of what we
possible
gotta
that a
explore.
golf pro from one of these companies might come and, in effect, run the club and give lessons and also be a marketing person?
That is a scenario, yeah.
Wow. I was just wondering how we're going to control costs by bringing 2 people in to replace 1. And my other question deals with the fact that there's about somewhere between $250 and $300 of taxpayer money that goes to the Recreation Commission and as part of the budget, but yet none of it goes to the golf course. And I want to echo the sentiments expressed previously that I just think that although the golf course may have been not part of that recreation budget historically, there's no reason why it should be left out. If I'm paying taxes, which I do, and have no other way to get money back, in effect, from the city, except fire and police protection, why shouldn't some of my tax money go to support the place where I spend my time on the golf course? So I just think that that's a consideration that the city council should hear. They should understand that there's a few people here that believe that maybe Lake Forest should treat its golf course the way Lake Bluff does. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comments or questions from the audience? Thank you very much. Comments or questions from the board?
I have any questions. Do we have any idea of what a consultant manager is going to cost? Or how long their contract is going to be?
Our expectation and our starting point is in the ballpark of Chris's salary, to be honest with you. And we've got to be realistic. We're asking for a lot. We don't honestly know yet if that's feasible. To his question earlier, is it 1 person, 2 people, whatever? Until we actually sit down with these organizations and understand what they can provide at what cost, it's difficult to say. I will tell you that, again, having talked to the 4 that we met with, at least 3 of them have indicated that it's very doable. And they know what Chris's salary is, and they understand what our financial picture looks like. So we're optimistic that we can find some model that doesn't cost us 3 times what it does today and bring this expertise and capabilities that we're lacking.
And is there any, just out of curiosity, so if we're down to 3 or 4 companies, does this kind of opportunity open it up for more again? Or are we staying with those 3 or 4?
Actually, Mary and I talked about that a bit today because we have received additional inquiries from companies that did not participate the first time. And I personally am concerned about individuals that claim they can fill this role, because again, what we want is an individual backed by a larger organization, a national organization that's operating multiple courses, that has that marketing infrastructure in place. That's the appeal of this model. So I believe we'll start with those original 4 that we talked with, and if we still can't find anything, we may open it back up again. That's our current thinking.
And what's the timeline to get somebody in?
Chris is finished the end of November.
Correct. He retires.
If we get city council approval, we'll move very quickly to sit down with those 4 organizations and explore options.
One of the questions that I'm getting emails and about from the members is where are we with timing for this as far as fees and, you know, what we would plan to do for next year. And, you know, this is why we are moving this along right now, because we want to be able to utilize some of that expertise and opportunity to meet with, you know, our who could possibly be involved with this, to give us some direction and guidance on that in time to get it out to capture our normal marketing opportunity, which our fees usually go before city council in November or early December, so that we can start selling our memberships for the next fiscal year, mid-December, early January. So we would plan to stay on that same timeline that many have sent me emails asking me about. So it should give them plenty of time to make a decision, you know, based on what we might or might not do. But we're going to take our time to make sure we do this well and do it right. So I can kind of answer that part of it. So
If, given that there's a small number of companies, if we can't come to some sort of arrangement that we're happy with, is there sort of a plan B?
not real. I mean, we really feel we're pretty confident that this is going to be something that will work well. Obviously, we have a budget in place to hire another pro, similar to the position that Chris, you know, filled for us. We also put in the budget this year to, assuming that the person would come in would be more of an operations, you know, help us with the marketing and things that Chris currently does not assist really with a whole lot. We put money as if Chris wasn't there, and we had to have somebody also do his lesson component. So I know that was a question one of the gentlemen asked here about that, is we have money in the budget to support somebody who would have to fill Chris's role that do lessons as well. So that is in that pro forma that we had already presented. So that is could be our fallback position, you know, the existing budget, existing structure that we have, and see what we can do to strengthen that. So, but beyond that, you know, we really don't feel comfortable with privatizing multiple positions in the entire operation, and at this point, if I'm speaking properly for the golf committee.
So the next step, if we recommend this action tonight, we approve the motion, we take it to the September 19th, 2011 City Council meeting, which is Monday. Are we foreseeing that they will approve this to go ahead, or is there a first reading and then we have to come back again another time? Or are we expecting the City Council to say yay or nay on Monday?
Well, we'd like to get guidance or approval to go forward with researching this option and find out what we can put together with the manager / consultant relationship, and then we'd have to bring that back to council again sometime probably
To hire the
October
manager.
in order to get
Okay.
approval on that. But we're asking for them to endorse this approach
Okay.
and allow us to begin the search and discussions to find out what that would be, and then that does have to come back to council as
Okay.
well,
So
and park board and council possibly.
Okay.
So.
Okay, so after the package has sort of been put together, it'll
Yeah.
come back through the system.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
So we're asking for approval to initiate this search process, basically.
Okay. So how, what is the timeline for putting together the Golf Advisory Committee?
That we've talked about. We want to first find out if council's going to support where
Right.
we're headed, and then we would begin to let people know that we are taking names. And we really, Kurt and I have talked a little bit in the golf committee, I know Catherine's here tonight too, as far as we want to make sure that we put a really core group together that can bring a lot of value to the table to assist us in all these areas: marketing, business practices, you know, IT, as we've mentioned. You know, we didn't have fiber optics to the clubhouse until this past year, which is what has restricted us from being able to do more IT services, but now we have that. We do need to tap the resources from the community that can help us with that, as well as the city's ability now to maximize that. So we'd like to put a group on there that can really add value for all those positions, and then we'll get them up and going. But it's going to be kind of a parallel course in some ways, and then we'll start to feed information over to the advisory committee, once we are moving down the path with actual information that we can talk about.
So if there's community members in the audience or watching tonight who are interested or know someone who's interested, should they contact you or Kurt? They should
You have it
contact
come in to
you?
me, and I'll share it with the golf committee.
Okay.
So,
I have just one last question. On this golf advisory committee, is this going to be something permanent, or is this something that's just going to be for the short term? Because I think, as everybody said, there's a lot of good opportunities here to get community involvement from those that use it most.
I think we should see where that leads us. We have parent advisory groups with other segments of our recreation departments. For instance, we have the Parent Advisory Board for our dance programs. We have steering committee that assists with the Wildlife Discovery Center. So they aren't always active every month. They are active only when needed or if there's a special topic, but I certainly am not opposed to having a golf advisory committee that continues to participate and play a role in the future. It, just really should depend on where we have to go and how much work is ahead of us, I think. I don't like to have meetings just to have meetings, so as long as we have work and there's a good value for it and the people who want to serve on it feel like they are contributing, for me, I think it could be open-ended, so.
I think it would also be, we've heard from several community members talking about the wealth of expertise that we have among the golfing community. If there's some way to sort of get a better sense of really, in more concrete terms, who and what kind of expertise, so that
It's just not a name, but it's a.
right. So if those of you, I'm not sure what the process for people who want to volunteer their services would be, but it would be nice to perhaps have people identify themselves and their expertise for somebody in this process, so that we have a sense of what resources outside of, within our own community that we would have.
We should probably make that one and the same, Mary, as we should solicit volunteers for the advisory committee, and some indication of what that person's strength is, whether it's
Correct.
marketing, IT, whatever. But
Right.
if you don't make the 5 to 7 group for the advisory committee, we still may ask for your help in another area if we're aware of your
Correct.
capabilities. So it's a good point.
Okay. If no more questions, thank you so much for the presentation, and it was wonderful. I would like to get a motion for the recommended action for the Park Board at the September 19, 2011 City Council meeting. Request City Council authorization to proceed with the consultant manager search.
Can I make a motion?
You may make the motion. In a second?
Second?
All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Great, the motion passes. So, thank you all very much. Appreciate your comments. We will move on to the Town Line Community Park Drainage Project, which is presented by our Superintendent of Parks and Forestry, Chuck Myers.
Good evening.
Hey, Chuck.
Town Line Community Park was opened in 2009. Since that time, we have observed some drainage issues out there. If you've been out there even days after a rain event, the grass is still very soggy, holds that water for an extended period of time, which affects the oxygen level in the soil, and as a result, the turf will not sustain itself. So we've been keeping an eye on it. We've tried to do some things out there with traditional aeration, but it's continuing to be a problem. Overall, it will not provide the quality turf that we need in a high-use area such as this. So we contracted with a civil engineer consultant that did a topographic survey, looked at soil, did a soil analysis to determine what the problem really was and what we could do about it. The topographic map showed that slope is not really the problem. We are getting enough slope, but actually the problem lies in the soil itself. So that led us to looking at different options to amend the soil. We discussed that with him. He had a number of different possibilities. Some of them involved removing the entire soil out there, amending it, which obviously is a drastic measure, would have a long wait time before we could use it again, but also extremely expensive. We then talked to him about other methods, such as the drill and fill. With that method, they use a specialized piece of equipment that drills a series of holes that are 1.25 inches in diameter and 8 inches deep. And those holes are simultaneously filled with an amending product. In this case, we would use Turfus. It's a porous ceramic material that's heated up to a high temperature, and it will stay in the soil for a very long time. That material essentially wicks the moisture away from the surface and creates a whole network of these small columns in there. And it will also be deep enough, as opposed to traditional aeration, to penetrate the hard pan. So we talked to him about that. The procedure would basically be a 2 to 3 week project, followed by our aeration with our machines that we have on hand, followed by a seeding, an overseeding of the whole site. It's 6.5 acres that we would be treating in this method. And finally, we would drag it. And the advantage there is that it would be far less disruptive. It would be ready to go for the spring. We would be looking at doing this fall, and some disruption while they're applying this technique, but you're able to play on it right away. Another issue that we have out there is the swale that is just west of the fields, between the parking lot and the play fields. That typically is holding water, surface water. It's unsightly. It limits the access that people have to the fields as well. There's only 3 spots that you can get through. So we're proposing that we regrade that and also install a pipe underground. It'll result in a gentler slope. You won't notice it as much, and people would have full access. You wouldn't have to pick those spots. You could just go out onto the field. I have a short video that shows this method. It's only a couple minutes. You can see the machine. This is why it takes a long time. They'll do that twice over the field. They'll go one direction and then another. So you can see it fills it as it goes. We would be supplying people to do that job. That will help us with the cost as well. As you can see, small little hills with that. This is sand, but we would be using Turfus. That's as far as we need to go. Next. So we would then have to drag that, and it would be ready for the spring, as I said. So the costs on this, the first thing you see on there is Conserve FS drill and fill. We would be looking at sole vendor on that because this specialized piece of equipment, there's only a few places in the country where we have found that they do this. In the Midwest, this is the only contractor. So we would be looking at $60,396 for that. The swale grading and the pipe that we would be installing, we would do with a contractor separate from Conserve. They wouldn't be doing that. And we would also be putting our staff on it as well. So we have $14,000 to correct that problem. And then the seed and the fertilizer to restore it. So the total is $78,440 with a contingency of $3,922. So you can see the total would be $82,362. For the funding source, we would be seeking to use the Route 60 debt service funds. We currently have $153,000 for that. You can see the $82,000 would be our first priority. And then what's left, we would like to still apply to the playground that was previously approved. So staff is recommending that we address the drainage issues at Town Line using the $82,362 from the debt service fund to contract the drill and fill service. Any questions?
So the material that goes in the hole, it's a powder, a sand-like powder?
It's coarser than sand. I actually have a sample. Now you can't see this that well, but it's it looks like a coarse gravel.
And it's ceramic, you said?
It is ceramic.
We use a lot of ball diamonds and
Yeah, it's-
smaller grade, different kind of grade into it, but
Okay.
It's used throughout the nation. It's a very well-known product that a lot of times it's used on the surface as well. But we would be injecting this into the soil.
And it won't come back up if it rains? The rain won't push it
No,
back up through the
when we
holes?
do the dragging, everything gets pretty much put intact. You'll still see some on the top, but there would be no, heaving up or anything like
But grass
that.
will grow over it, and
Yeah,
eventually
right.
you'll put more soil?
Eventually, you wouldn't even hardly notice
Okay.
the holes. In the beginning, you would, but I would think that next summer even, it should be very thick. And keep in mind, this is going to provide the oxygen that's needed. We'll follow that with regular fertilizing, so it should be a very thick turf.
And how long will we have to do this again in X number of years, or
We're-
this will take care of it?
We're told no, it does stay in the soil for, I was told, approximately 20 years before it even starts to break down, so we wouldn't have to do it again.
So has Conserve FS given us a guarantee that this is going to fix the problem?
It's their recommendation. They gave us a number of references. They've been doing it for a while. They actually have a company that does it for them. It's not their equipment. They have to sub it to someone else, and they've been very successful. They're confident that this is the solution that would be best for us.
Have you seen one of their references and gone out and looked at the grass and convinced yourself that it's going to fix the problem?
We actually did do this service at one time. It was before I was here at West Park, and I'm told by our staff that it was successful. So I'm going by that as one reference. So I haven't been to any of the fields. I know that I have a list, and that we're going to follow up and make sure that everyone is content with the service. But it seems like a reliable product and service.
So we've got a very quirky situation there with that hard pan and the drainage, and it's been problematic for a while. And my fear is we spend this kind of money for this whiz-bang technology, and a year from now we're talking about the same problem. So I'd feel more comfortable if you actually saw where they've applied this in a very similar situation in this climate and all that kind of stuff, and convince yourself that it's really going to address the problem.
when they did their presentation, they did review a few of the more local places that have done this same application. A number of football fields and special sports areas have, in our area, the Chicagoland area, have done this in almost identical conditions and issues going out with that soggy, bog. Water's not leaving the field. It wasn't a slope issue. And they showed us, kind of what it looked like going in and now what the fields look like today, but we actually haven't physically been there, yet, Kurt, to look at them. But they were very pleased with their, what they had reestablished, how quickly they reestablished and the quality of their turf. So that led us to really feel more comfortable with, it's been done in this area. Primarily this turf drill and fill you see more in the south. A lot of the big golf courses and things like that down south find these bigger issues because they also doing seasons year round, and we have the gaps here with winter and stuff. So, but that's kind of our learning curve that we had to kind of try to see who's done it around here and where. But
I think I've talked about this before, and I keep going back to the fact that the Town Line Community Park is not that old. And I don't believe the soil has changed from when it was there until when it became a park. And so the people that we contracted with first obviously saw the soil, and they put in what they put in and recommended what they did. Can't we go back to them and say that clearly they were wrong, and go back and say, the product that you or the recommendation you gave us did not work, and we're having these problems? Did we not get a guarantee from them that our fields would be playable and we'd have all the drainage issue and all that information? We can't go back to them to capture any of this money that we have to pay for a very relatively new park to fix already.
Well, we did talk with, the consultant, the engineering consultant that we had here regarding the testing that we had done before the project started, which was done by soils and materials consultant. And I guess the interesting thing I learned from it is that there's many ways and different types of things to request in those soil tests. And what we requested or what we got should indicate that it's soil that will grow things. It doesn't necessarily give you the answers on how well it'll absorb, how it will fit with your, pan, hard pan area. So that was some of the things that test wouldn't have given us, and we didn't request that kind of level of knowledge before we did the turf field. So their feeling was that, no, we really, at this point, don't have a recourse to go back to those companies, because based on the soil tests that are the typical standard things you asked for, which is what we did, didn't detect that this particular soil and these conditions were going to exist after things were graded the way they were. So that's kind of left us in a difficult spot that way. As frustrated as all of you and all those who play on the fields that we have this performance issue, but the extreme is way out there of completely, redoing the fields. We also looked at putting in some fingerling pipes, some grates kind of thing throughout the field. What we concerned with that is the potential of the heaving of the grates in the field, because that is something you have to constantly monitor. The second aspect of that was the feeling is you just have ribbons of green, because it's not enough over all the areas to really capture it consistently across the whole turf. And you'd have these bands of green and bad soils elsewhere that would slowly, have to be changed. So this seemed to be the most comprehensive approach to trying to address the problem out there, and we felt it was within a reasonable price, to try this. And then if we do have other options, we can always go back and add in the drains in certain areas if we needed to, as a phase 2 in the spring or something, if we needed to. But I think we'll get a pretty good sense this fall how it starts to drain, because you can walk out there any day now with a wet condition and you can feel the difference in the turf.
So we should know right away, right after the process is done, if it's working, pretty
Yes.
much? Okay.
As I remember, the plan with pipes and drainage was significantly more than this.
It was, and
Yes.
it was very disruptive to the turf too, because you had to peel back all the existing turf, trench in, drop the pipes in, put the sod back down, refill, put the sod back in. And we did do that in the northwest corner. We tried that about, I want to say, a year ago, fall, yeah. And it did make a difference. And you can, from an aerial GIS, you can literally see the finger pipes. And that little strip of land there, about 6 inches wide, the turf is lush and looks great. Once you get away from that, right where it was over that pipe, it just goes yellow a little bit again, and it's wet. So I don't think it's probably a long, it's an enhancement to, we could still do as an enhancement if there's a challenge out there, but we felt this was a more comprehensive approach that our engineering, consultant, and he brought in all different options that we went through for the last, 3-4 weeks looking at what we could do there, but.
So I would feel better if we would require some sort of a guarantee. And that could be we withhold the final payment until it's demonstrated that it addresses the problem or something. But this sole source award, just blindly believing it's going to work, makes me uncomfortable.
I'm sure we'll take a look at their we haven't done a contract with them yet, but we can certainly look at the language that's in that and make sure it's acceptable, that we want to see the performance results, you know.
Okay,
Okay,
all right, thank you.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
So can I get a motion to recommend the recommended action?
So moved.
Second,
Subject to
subject to
some sort of a performance
some type of
guarantee.
performance guarantee. Second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, on to the director's report.
Okay.
Park Board Terms of Service.
This item, the city manager asked me to bring to the attention of the park board, and I'm basically going to ask that the park board give this some thought and call me with some thoughts or comments about it, and that is, currently the park board's terms of service is 5 years, and that isn't consistent with what most other boards and commissions of the city are. There's only one other board that has a 5-year term. Most of the boards in the city are 2-year terms with the opportunity to renew for an additional 2 years. And we've struggled a little bit with commitment of board members because either their kids get into new things and ages, or, you know, job changes or what have you. And he's really looking through all of our boards and commissions and trying to get some consistency from that perspective. So the city manager would like to recommend that we consider changing our park board terms to 2-year term with an opportunity to continue for a second 2-year term if you wish to, stay on the board and you've had good attendance and that kind of thing. And it wouldn't affect the current board members. You would continue to serve out your existing term unless you'd want to change, but otherwise it would be the new people coming on, like when Robin is done in May, that person would come on for a 2-year term then and go from there. So again, I'm not asking for you to have an answer or anything this evening, but I would just love if you could give me a call, let me know what your thoughts might be on that, if you think that's a good direction to go, if you have any issue, think that's going to pose any concerns for us. I will share from my perspective, when I've tried to work with the caucus and trying to get people to do the terms, the 5-year has been a hurdle. It's a long time commitment for many parents and things, and they've said to me, I want to be involved with Spirit of 67 when my kids are older, or I might want to do something at Gorton. And so that 5 years has been a little bit challenged when I've had it. But on the other hand, we have been able to fill our positions, each time we've had the vacancy. So there's the pros and cons, I guess, to that. So that was the first thing I just wanted to mention to you. The second thing is to remind the park board that we're going to be having a special Forest Park project board meeting with the historic preservation. It'll be a dual board meeting that's going to be held on September 21st. It'll be here at 6:30 in the evening, and the Forest Park Project Board will be presenting to both boards to get feedback as to where they are in their research and their thoughts right now with their project and where it's headed. There will be no action taken that night. It's strictly an opportunity for the two boards to ask questions of the Forest Park Project Board, and specifically from our park board to ask questions that may relate to the functionality of that particular property as a recreational amenity for the community and how it fits in with our overall, desires on preserving that park going forward. So just want to remind you of that one.
Mary,
Yeah.
is there going to be public participation at that meeting?
There
or is.
is.
It just, okay.
There will be public participation at that as well. And the notices are out. We have also sent to the mailing list, or will be shortly sending to the mailing list, to the Forest Park Project, people who have been on the interest list from previously. And it's also in the news releases. It's gone recently on all the local sites for that as well. So, and that will be here at City Hall. It will be
Okay.
televised as well, so.
Okay.
And then a couple upcoming things I just wanted to mention to you. We did convert one of the racquetball handball courts that was at the rec center. It was our oldest court, or first court, I should say, into a studio. that we are utilizing to expand opportunities for fitness, dance, and like martial arts kind of programs because of our small number of racquetball and handball and squash participants that we have right now. So we think it's a real good direction and use of that space. It was paid for, the renovations of the court were paid from the dance academy and fitness program areas from monies that they have produced through their fees and charges. So it looks great. The classes will start in there this week. So we're very excited about that, and that will give us a fifth studio, which has been a challenge for us because we've had such large enrollment in our dance programs and in our fitness requests that we've had to expand programming for that area in particular. So that project, you stop by the rec center and see it, it looks great. The library book sale, which is a cooperative thing we started a few years ago. It's just we love the partnership opportunities. Their books started rolling in the doors late last night and through this whole week. Thursday through Sunday, the sale will be going on at the rec center. So we encourage everybody to come out and support the library, get some great books, and get a chance to see your rec center, walk down the hall and check out the fitness center when you're there. So that will be going on this weekend. The South Beach Access Road work has not started. We have done the tree removals that were necessary to prep for the road. We're waiting for the contractor to finish up a project that he's got going on the south edge of town, and he'll be over shortly to get that work underway. So we have been able to maintain that road and have kept it open, which I think this last weekend was a beautiful weekend, as you all know. So we had a lot of boating activity going on down there still. So we encourage our boaters to continue to utilize the road as long as we can keep it open, and as soon as we do have word that's starting, we'll get word out to all of our boaters as well. So that work is shortly to begin, but not yet. Fall registration is ongoing, so we still have opportunity to sign up for a lot of our fall classes, and they start at some different times. Some start next week and some the week after, so please come in and take advantage of our classes that we have going on. And the last thing I wanted to mention is a special program that is happening. It's with our dance company is doing a program called Company Cures, a day of movement that matters, and it's benefiting Benny's World, and it's going to be held at the rec center. Benny was a little boy who passed away who was in our preschool program, and this is a program to honor him as well as a fundraiser. So that's going to be on October 2nd at the rec center from 1 to 5. And Rob's already mentioned his Croctoberfest, so I don't need to mention that one again, other than it's going to be a great event, so everybody should come out and enjoy it. And other than that, the last thing I wanted to mention is that I'll be needing to get with a meeting date out to the park board members to talk about our capital. As you know, we typically put a list together, bring it to the park board, and have some discussion on what it is we need to focus on for the next year and a few years out. And so that timetable is approaching here to do that again this year. So you'll be seeing an email come from me trying to find out availability for, park board to meet on that topic as well. And that's it.
Can you give a quick update on Waveland?
Oh, sure. Waveland's looking great. The tennis courts and basketball court are done. Kids are out there playing and shooting hoops and unfortunately doing other things on the tennis courts which should not be happening, like rollerblading and hockey and stuff like that. So we did also have somebody light off some fireworks on the brand new tennis court and blew a hole in the, burnt off the surface of the tennis court, which is disappointing to see. So we do have to do a little patch on that now. So that's very unfortunate. But the courts look great. I'm hearing tremendous feedback of how they play, and the basketball court is in use already. We have the benefit for Daniel Jekyll on a remembrance dedication for the basketball court, which will be a week from Saturday, the 24th of September, will be at the Waveland Park. The playground is, all the equipment is in. We hope to get the curbing started either later this week or early next week, and then the poured in place will go in after that. The grading in the parking lot, they're going to kind of almost be doing this a little bit simultaneously just for timing, the way it's working out right now. So the east lot, which is the one that will be graded down in the parking lot, will probably be done shortly too. And then the very last thing we'll do is demo the existing old playground and regrade that area. So that, we haven't started that, so that there's still a playground for the kids to play on until we get the playground finished. But if you have a chance, stop by and see the playground equipment it is in, and the two staff that we've had working on have just done a great job of assembling it all and leveling it and all that kind of thing. So it looks really good, and thanks to Chuck for getting out there on a regular basis and checking on all of it. So, but it looks good. We did the grading up around the courts and seeded that with a blanket that's down, and we, have some landscaping also to do, but it's getting there.
Great.
Looks good.
Great. Any other comments from the park board? We were a chatty bunch today. Opportunities for the public to address the park board on non-agenda items. Anyone? Okay. If I would like to have a motion for adjournment. Who hasn't made a motion today?
I think I made the first one. So
You made
I'm
the
up.
first one. Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
A second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Yes? Okay, motion adjourned. Meeting adjourned. Whatever. Thank you.